This is Ask the Mayor, our regular Thursday show with Mayor Bob Morgan of the city of Beatrice, who has been a busy man this holiday season. First of all, you do the emceeing for the courthouse lights, and then you're a judge for the holiday lights parade. You're doing double duty here.
Well, yeah. Good morning, Doug.
Morning.
Yeah, but those are kind of fun events.
Yeah.
I think the lighting of the courthouse is always a special time, and when you think about how I got started with J.T. Thornburg, it was really a special evening. I thought it was cold, it was wet, but we got through it, and it was a really good event. And then the Chamber's Holiday Lighted Parade, I think, what is it? It's 9th holiday parade. I think that when you looked at most of the floats, I have to say they put in a lot of time.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really pretty quality votes, and judging the Holiday Lighted Parade, the three of us, I'm glad there were three, because there had to be some way to distinguish who won, because there was a number of floats that were just phenomenal.
You had a tie in one category and a couple of winners in the other two, but you look back the 9 years at that when the Chamber and Tourism first started that, it was kind of one of those things where you don't really know, are people going to show up, is it something and now it's kind of become a mainstay. I mean, people, I think, really look forward to that every year, early December.
I think it's a mainstay, and I think it's an expectation.
Yeah.
I think Angie and Dakota did a really nice job. I think it all came together very, very nicely, and in December, it's not a 2-hour parade. It's about 35, 40 minutes, but that's really pretty good at night. Very well attended, and I know Santa Claus stuck around and saw about 100 kids. So at the end of the day, that's a pretty good night.
You had a big city participation, too. I know the utility departments, fire, police help with directing traffic there, too, as kind of have to keep things going through Ella and Highway 136 there. But everything goes pretty smoothly,
It did, and, thanks to everybody who, gave their time, not only from the city, but for the floats. And, it was a really fun evening.
Yeah. As I look around town, there's always been a lot of residential Christmas and holiday lights, but it seems like if you count all the homes and the upgrade and lighting for commercial buildings downtown, the courthouse and everything, the town's really grabbed a hold of kind of the festive nature of the holiday by all the lighting you see.
It really does. And as you drive around, you see, some phenomenal lighting.
Yeah.
I know I saw your article about Envision, who has, made a pretty good business out of putting up Christmas lights and really making the community look really, really well. You got a beautiful Christmas tree that Schoen Roofing has in Charles Park. And as I drove by Charles Park and left the city council meeting Monday night, really looks nice.
Yeah.
I mean, the quality time that you can spend there. I had to kind of laugh, my hometown where I grew up is Aurora, and I sometimes log on to the Aurora News Register and see what's happening, even though I've been gone for, a long time. But I thought it was funny because they have a holiday parade, and they now have tagged themselves for Christmas the unofficial town of Hallmark.
Really?
And so I'm like, maybe we're pretty close to rivaling your Hallmark moment there. So
they have to get a copyright permission on that from Hallmark, or what?
I think that's why they said unofficial.
Yeah, unofficial. Yeah.
But I think it really adds to the community, and from a tourism perspective, as you continue to build the lights around the community, you're probably going to see some people who come into town.
Yeah.
And that's always a plus for our businesses. And I think Main Street's done a good job of trying to promote a lot of things that happen that Saturday. And so it's good for the community, and it's just good for our holiday spirit.
In those times I do travel to wherever this time of year when I go through a town, I kind of look for that to see, are neighborhoods lit up? Have they done anything with their town square or something, businesses and things like that? And I see some, but not nearly what you see here, it seems like.
No, when I was growing up, again, I think one of the big closest places that really did like a courthouse thing was Minden. I would say that from my memory, at least, I think we've surpassed what they've done with their courthouse, so that's always good too. And it's not really a competition, but you always feel good when you see what your community has done with Christmas lights and Christmas spirit, and I think that's one of the things we just have to remember as we go through and be thankful for all of the community and all of our neighbors and the support that they give in times like this.
I think Main Street also has kind of a business display holiday lighting contest too, if I remember right. I think they're doing that this year, but I'm not sure.
I think you're right as well.
Yeah. I know they've had participation of maybe a dozen or 15 businesses in the past. A kind of nice little contest to get some recognition. So.
Absolutely.
And I did notice just coming to work this morning, a lot of the storefronts are looking pretty nice as far as lit up and things. So.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. That's right. You get to come to work before the sun comes up.
I go to work when it's dark. I go home when it's dark. That's kind of this time of year. So I got to look at the lights. I can't see anything else really. So segue into Main Street. You have a new agreement with Main Street for the fiscal year through the end of next September. I'm assuming retroactive to the October 1st and everything as far as expenses.
That is correct.
Like that. And it boosted the potential reimbursement from $30,000 up to $40,000. Talk about that in terms of why the increase. There was a couple of areas where they wanted to apply some resources.
Right. I think they want to apply some resources for some marketing. They wanted to apply some resources, I think, as kind of some giveaway grants to some of the downtown businesses. And then they're also having it's kind of like an economic growth opportunity grant, and I think there's a $5,000 match, and so half of that goes toward that match. I think that Main Street does a good job. I think as we continue to try to figure out how to revitalize downtown, they have to be an important player because they do represent the businesses of downtown. And so I think when we look at our overall budget and the additional items that they're going to do for that budget, I think it was worth the extra $10,000. The other thing that I think that many people don't know is with this funding or, Engage's funding, it's really a reimbursement base. So the $40,000 is a not to exceed price. And with Main Street, they've done a good job of tying funding into goals that they've had set. So they don't reach those goals, they don't get the funding for a couple of, we deduct some of that amount. So I think it is one that helps the community, it helps downtown, and at the end of the day, I think it's a pretty good way to spend some money to support really downtown. And I don't know how many other communities have a downtown Main Street business or organization or a downtown organization, but at the end of the day, that's one of the things that's going to help keep the downtown doing as good as it can and improve as we go forward.
The other assumption or myth or whatever you want to call it that seems to be out there is that when you hear a discussion about government funding to an organization like that, there may be some people that think, well, that's the only funding they get, but it's on the other side, actually. Main Street raises a lot of its support on its own.
It does. I mean, for instance, if you belong to Main Street as a business, there's, your annual dues. I think when we looked at this issue, I think we're maybe 20 or 25% of their budget. So 75% comes in from donations and from the businesses themselves.
Yeah. That grant you mentioned, that was what kind of for entrepreneurship, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yes.
Kind of boosting that area of startup interest because, a lot of people, when we, a company comes in and they bring in 100 jobs or whatever, probably don't realize that the vast majority of a lot of jobs just comes from a mom and pop business that started. They may have started with 2 or 3 employees, but they become successful and then they employ more people, and you have quite a few of those across the U.S.
You do, and I think, what is it, the Saturday after Thanksgiving is always small business Saturday, and coming from small business myself back in the day, I think it's great to support your small businesses because at the end of the day, they're one of your mainstays to keep everything rolling.
Yep. Okay. 8:40 is our time on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan. We'll have more in a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Bob Morgan as we talk about City of Beatrice matters. The old campaign with the consultant to generate private support for Hannibal Park just keeps going. Picked up another naming rights sponsor Monday night.
Yep, picked up Baumgars to sponsor one of the pavilions there. And so we're very thankful to Baumgart's for that, and to all the people who've stepped up for sponsorships. We're probably, I don't know if we're winding down or not, but it's been a good partnership with this firm, and it's been a good partnership with people in the community to sponsor Hannibal Park. I know there's been some questions about what about Westcott ball fields, and what about this and what about that. Our contract was specifically for Hannibal, and the reason it was strictly for Hannibal is we have a master plan to finish off Hannibal Park over the next 2 or 3 years, and that's really going to enhance what we were able to do.
Yeah, it was kind of jokingly mentioned, do you have a street that you'd like to have somebody sponsor? But even so, from a serious note, as successful as this has been, could the concept be applied in the future if you find something where, you'd like to do something, but maybe don't have the outward tax support to maybe complete it?
I think it's absolutely opened up an avenue that we need to look at. I think, like everything, it's something we can't overdo. I think we have to be careful of how we use the funding, and I think there has to be value to our sponsors. You think about Hannibal, there's a lot of people that run through Hannibal Park from probably starting about March to September. Between all the facilities and all the ball fields, we host a lot of softball tournaments throughout there, and so it's probably a great way to get your name out there. Don't know if it had the same effect if you named a street after that, but as far as value, you on sponsorships, you really need. You hope you give back some value to all those sponsors.
And it's not just the tournaments, but the regular traffic you get too for leagues and things like that.
Absolutely, leagues. You've got high school. I think you still got the college. You've got a number of drivers there for.
May have a family picnic now and then where you have people coming in from to use. So
yeah. Well, I think tennis courts are there.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it was a good partnership for the city, good partnership for the sponsors, and having someone else do it, they know how to do it right, and so it worked out very well.
One of the other things, I did want to mention before we go on, and you mentioned this before the show comes on, I had kind of a return of a military troop to Beatrice here pretty soon. I want to make sure I mentioned that because you had brought that up, and I had it written down here to mention it, but it is an important thing, though.
Well, it is. We do have the National Guard Armory here, and what we have to realize is sometimes they come in on the weekends and they leave after that, and we don't necessarily take the time to appreciate everything that they do. Troop C from the 1st Squadron of the 31st Cavalry Regiment, Army National Guard is located here. On November 28th of 2022, 99 members of that squadron, or that troop, left over to go do a deployment in Kuwait. And, when you deploy, there's a lot of sacrifices that take place, and I think we just need to recognize them when they come back, and they're going to come back sometime this week. But the service members are away from their family, birthdays, anniversaries, those type of things, and then having a son in the military who's been deployed a number of times, you really see the effect on the family because they're away from their children's birthdays and their spouses' anniversaries, and the spouse has to play a major role almost back to a single parent as they're gone. And so I think it's just phenomenal that, first of all, we have the National Guard here, and second of all, 99 soldiers have sacrificed 9 or 10 months of their life to be over to Kuwait to make sure that our country's safe.
It's affected the city a little bit too, because police and firefighters, I know there have been some instances where they're on deployment for either 9 months or even longer in some cases.
Right. Not only, the city, but also employers. When you have a business and you employ a National Guardsman, you're thankful to have them. And the sacrifice they make, and so you give them that time off and hold their job for when they come back.
Well, we'll look for seeing some extra traffic out by the Army National Guard Regional Training Center here. I don't know exactly when that will be, and obviously they want to have the time with their families. Right. it's not really a thing where, I'm sure it's terribly advertised ahead of time, but
Right.
But it's, if you see somebody who is part of that deployment, welcome them back, thank them for their service.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What's great is, they're going to come back before Christmas.
Yeah.
And so that kind of helps reunite the family. So, but they missed last Christmas. So those are kind of the sacrifices and trade-offs that, unless you have been in the service or you have children that are in the service, you don't really realize the sacrifice they make. And I just didn't want that to go unnoticed, that we as the city appreciate all the National Guard people, whether it's across the country, but especially with Troop C, who are finally getting to come home and be with their family.
Just in time for Christmas.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Monday night, something new that I didn't really know was in the works, but it was there with not a lot of discussion Monday night before the vote, a new code of conduct for your office, city council members, commissions, boards, whatever. What kind of started the idea for this? And people might ask, why now?
Well, first of all, I think, Aaron Sadoff, our city clerk, belongs to the League of City of Clerks, and she picked this idea up from, I think it was La Vista. I think it's becoming a movement in a number of places. I think one of the emphasis that made us start thinking about it is, not going to say in the communities, but in one small community, you had a mayor that happened to come to the meeting intoxicated and couldn't finish the meeting, so they left. And so
probably not a good idea.
No, not a good idea. I'm not going to do that. And then you had another. It's just, I think it's a sign of the times. You had another couple councilmen in another Nebraska city that basically got into a very strong, abusive verbal argument. I think social media has helped fuel some of this. I think just the sign of the times has started to fuel some of this. And so, people have asked, well, what's the penalty? And I think if I had to rename it, the only mistake I think I made is I think it was guiding principles. Yeah. And I think we're just getting out there. We want to be civil. And we know we're not always going to agree. And we know that there are people in the community that are not going to agree with what we do. But I think it really gives us at least a benchmark or a guiding principle of how we should conduct ourselves in public meetings. And so, when you talk about it, you take a city councilman, for instance, they were voted in by the people. Yeah. So there's not a lot of, you can't really say, okay, you can't be a city councilman anymore. That would be a recall issue more than anything else. But it is a way to remind them and myself that no matter what the discussion is, and no matter whether you agree or disagree, it can be done in a civil manner. I think the old saying is, at some point in time, on a number of issues, you have to agree to disagree. And I think that's kind of the guiding principle we were trying to get at there. We're very fortunate to have the volunteers on the boards and the committees, and this has nothing to do with actions. It just has something to do that Aaron presented to me, and I thought, well, yeah, guiding principles on how to act is it, there's nothing in there that we don't already try to do. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's just a nice reminder as we go through it.
Speaking at just the council level, to take it as an example, knowing how you get into some pretty pointed discussions at times with big disagreements over issues and things like that, with this type of policy, was there any concern at all that you might stifle a little bit of that strong opinion type discussion on a particular issue, or you don't see that as a problem?
Again, it really depends on the makeup of your council members. And I think we've got 8 council members that are going to have different opinions at some point in time. And I think for the most part, they're not afraid to speak up. Yeah. I think they've done that, either whether they're new or whether they've been there for a long time. I think that if they have an opinion, we had a little bit of discussion on the Main Street funding agreement right after we approved that. And so I think we're still going to have really good dialogue. It just is a matter of how civil you have those dialogues.
Sounds like a good thing for Congress or something.
Well, we're
Did
trying.
I say that?
It's all right. We're we're trying our best to not be, not model ourselves after what's happening in Washington at the moment.
Yeah. The overall goal is to have a good conversation and discussion, but everybody goes home friends.
And at the end of the day, once the decision's made, I think, for the most part, I haven't seen, I actually have never seen that. Once the decision is made, it's over. The discussion's over, and we all say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Whether you're on the winning side or the losing side of that discussion and the vote, everyone steps up and says, okay, we've made the decision, it's time to move on.
And the thing is, if it doesn't work out, you can always revisit an issue if it's just not working a particular way.
That is true.
Yeah. So, back to wrap up, Ask the Mayor with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. We're back on Ask the Mayor today. I have just about 4 minutes left on our program with Mayor Bob Morgan. Heard recently that everything was pretty much on schedule for the new elementary school to open in August. Things are going well there in terms of interior work. You obviously, the city has some role regarding, access to streets, things like that over time. Any update on the city side as far as items like that, or perhaps we get asked once in a while about what happens with the old elementary buildings?
Sure. Right now the street design is still in design. Last time I got an update, I think they were at 40 or 50%. We wish we could have gotten to an earlier place so we could have been working this summer on those roads, which we probably will start. But it's a major project, so it's probably going to take a couple years. And so I just want to give people a heads up, the traffic isn't going to flow as well as what we were hoping that we could do. But as far as is on schedule, as far as design, I know that there's not a preliminary design out there for anybody to look at yet because the design team and engineers are still working on that. And, one of the things, it's better to have things pretty well complete for reactions than just 30%, 40%, 50%. So we're still working with the design team there. As far as the old elementaries, I think, first of all, we have to let school get out. And then we'll take a look at each one and evaluate each one. And each one's located in a different part of the city, which was kind of the model that you saw when elementary schools were built 65, 70 years ago.
I come from one of those towns where
Me
they're
too.
all gone now.
Yeah, we were really creative with our names. It was West Side, East Side, North Side, and South Side.
Made it real easy to remember, huh?
That's right. But like anything, we have to evaluate the building, evaluate the lifespan, what could be maybe residential development if you tear a school down. There's going to be a lot of water that flows under the bridge until we can figure it out. Occasionally we have some people interested in the buildings. One of the things that we also want to make sure that we do is that we want to make sure it's in whatever goes in there complements the neighborhood. And so that's kind of a tall order to kind of figure out what to do.
All right. Any update on the application process for firefighter positions that were vacant? I know the department was and the city were taking applications because you had a few vacant positions there. Any kind of update on that?
I know we've hired one, but that app I think was in process. Last time I checked, we had 6 or 7 applications that the city was reviewing. We may have had more because that was a couple weeks ago. So. We're excited to have those applications come in and continue to work with the applicants and hopefully get them hired.
A lot of lateral transfer in police and fire departments in Nebraska, probably other places too, where, departments are having trouble finding people and they have to kind of up the ante, I guess, to try to get people.
Yeah, I mean, it is something that you typically didn't think you'd ever see. But, at the end of the day, I think we've got a lot of tangible things going for us with our fire department, and they do a wonderful job. And we'll continue to work through the application process to get them back up to where they need to be.
Coming up, and I don't think you've had what's called a work session for some time now prior to the second council meeting right in front of it. But any topics out there that you're maybe thinking about having a work session on at this point?
Well, we'll probably have some things come up. One of the things you'll probably see, you saw it, Monday night, and you're going to see it on the 18th. December's kind of one of the times we just kind of have a little lighter agenda as we get into the holiday season. One of the things we're going to do, and I don't know if it's going to be a work session or whether it's going to be a regular discussion point of city council, but we are going to take a look at, maybe the first session in January, the second session in January. We're going to kind of put a recap together of everything that, from a positive perspective, we've done for the year. For instance, a great thing was the waterfall. And I think there's a lot of little things that we've done that we'd like to just share our successes and our wins. And so that'll either be a work session or it'll be during the discussion part. Just depends on, what we have on the agenda at that point in time.
Kind of goes back and looks at some of the goals you set and whether or not how far along they are and that type of thing.
Yep.
Too. All right.
Yeah.
Mayor, thanks very much for being with us again.
Thank you.